So we're talking about the life story of Yaakov Avinu, and in the beginning of the last parak, we quoted a pasuk in Amos, in the Nevuah of Amos, where it talks about a person who runs away from a lion, bumps in, and then as he's running away from a lion, he bumps into a bear, right? And then and the continuation of the pasuk is and he gets saved from the bear, and then he comes home and he puts his hand on the wall in his house, and a snake comes out and bites him. That's what it says in Amos. And Amos is comparing that to a person who is a Rasha and he's waiting for Mashiach to come, and he's telling don't you realize that the problems that you have now are just going to be exacerbated by Mashiach arriving? So the only thing you can do is do tshuva. Don't just wait for Mashiach to come. Do tshuva. That's what the Navi Amos is basically saying. And the Medrash explains it as talking about the life of Yaakov Avinu. He's running away from a lion. Said that the lion was Lavan because he ran away after he left Lavan's house. He was running away from him, and he bumps into a bear. We said in the last parak that the bear was Esav. Fine. Now we talk about he gets to his house. So Yaakov Avinu gets back. Finally gets to Eretz Yisrael. And what does he do? He puts his hand next to the wall, and a snake comes out and bites him. So what's the snake coming out and bite him? That's going to be the subject of this parak. It's a fairly long parak, and because we're doing shorter shiurim, it'll probably take us 5 or 6 weeks. The first part of the parak talks about the story of Dinah and Shechem. Then it talks about Yaakov and Esav, sort of how they reconciled Yitzchak's death. And then it talks about the sale of Yosef. And then it goes on a side topic of different excommunication bans, because when the brothers sold Yosef, so they said they made a incommunicado about telling about the sale. So then it talks about different cases where they made a public cherem in history, and then the next parak is going to be about Yaakov and continuation of the story of Yosef in Mitzrayim, and Yaakov coming down to Mitzrayim and the last days of Yaakov's life, and then afterwards we go parak Mem is really about Moshe Rabbeinu. So we basically finish Sefer Bereshis. Okay, so what the snake that came out and bit Yaakov Avinu? What's this snake? What's it a reference to? It says the Mesh. Ksiv. It says in the pasuk in Amos. Uvoha bayis. He came to his house. V'zomach yodai alakir, and he put his hand next to the wall. Unushochei hanochash, and the snake bit him. So what's that referring to? Kishavah Yaakov leveisai be'eretz achuzosai shebe'eretz Canaan. When Yaakov Avinu came to his house in the land of his inheritance, in the land of Canaan, nushochei hanochash, the snake bit him. Ve'ezei nachash, what is that snake? Zeh Shechem ben Chamor. This is a reference to Shechem ben Chamor, the person who we're going to see was the one who ended up violating Yaakov Avinu's daughter. Why is he called a snake? So Marzu explains based on the Medrash in Koheles Rabbah, because he's Shechem ben Chamor HaChivi, the Hivvite. And the word Chivia or Chivia, Chivi or Chivia in Aramaic actually means snake. So if you translate his name, it's Shechem ben Chamor HaChivi, the snake. Right? That's sort of like Pashup Pshat. Rabbi Yomi Izmir explains that why is and actually it doesn't say Hachivi, at least in my period of the Bliezer, but the Radal says it should say the word Hachivi. Zashchem ben Chamor Hachivi, the snake. Rabbi Yomi Izmir says a very interesting idea based on Arizal that I don't really want to get into it because I don't feel comfortable saying over this whole approach that he takes, but he basically says an idea that Dinah has to do with Chava, that Dinah is sort of a Gilgul of Chava, and that he says that Dinah, the letters of the word Dinah is the same letters as the word Nida, and just like Chava is the woman who brought the concept of Nida to the world, so Dinah is also a continuation of that reincarnation of that person. So he says that Dinah is Chava, and he says that the Shechem ben Chamor, why are we calling him a snake? Because he's sort of an incarnate of that original snake that enticed Chava to sin. And the way that Rizal says it is sort of the tikkun for the sin of Chava is that the Nachash has to have relations with Dinah. That Shechem will be with Dinah. And that's sort of going to fix the original sin somehow. I don't know exactly how we understand these things, Kabbalistic concepts that are a little bit beyond my grasp. But that's sort of his basic approach, and then he explains how like some of the things that happen in this paragraph are sort of justified. But I don't like to justify bad things, so I'm going to stay away from it. But there is such an approach. Fine. So what did Shechem ben Chamor do? It says in Medrash, the daughter of Yaakov, meaning Dinah, was Yesheves Ahalim. She used to sit in the tent. Right, like we say about, when we say by Yaakov Avinu, Yaakov was Yeshev Ahalim, he sits in the tent. Yaakov Ishtam Yeshev Ahalim, he was a wholesome person. He would sit in the tent. So Chazal tells us that means that he would learn Torah. That's what it means, Yeshev Ahalim, for a man, because the Ikar mitzvah for a man is Limud Torah. When we talk about for a woman Yesheves Ahalim, that Dinah was sitting in the tent, that's referring to her extraordinary character in the midah of tznius, of modesty. That she wouldn't go outside. Kol kveda bas melech pnima. Say that minashim ba'ayel tevayrach. That's the lashon that Devorah said in her song when she's singing about this Yael, the woman who killed Sisera. So she says, minashim ba'ayel tevayrach. You should be more blessed than the women in the tent. And Chazal tells who are those women in the tent? That's referring to the immodest. Sarif Rachel Aleh. Right? They were the women in the tent. When the Malach came to visit Avram Avinu, she said he asked, Ayeh Sarah Ishtacha, where's your wife Sarah? And Avram Avinu said, Hine ba'oil, she's in the tent. That's the idea that Dinah was Yesheves Ahalim, Dinah was somebody who would sit in her tent and she wouldn't go outside. Now Rashi, the lashon of the pasuk, when it talks about this story, it says Vateitzei Dinah bas Leah. Dinah bas Leah went out. And Rashi and Chumash brings down that, why does it say Vateitzei Dinah bas Leah? It says that because Leah, there's a story with the Udaim that she went out to greet Yaakov Avinu and say that he's going to be with her that night. So it says she went out. So we say that Leah is the type of person who goes out. So Rashi says that Dinah is also the type of person who goes out. There was some sort of chisarn in the midah of tznius, according to Rashi, in Dinah. But the Radal explained, or you could say, yeah. The Radal says that maybe that has to do with the famous Gemara that says that originally when Leah was pregnant with her seventh kid, so it was originally going to be a boy, and then she realized that if she has a seventh boy, then Rachel's only going to have one boy instead of two. So she prayed that boy won't be a boy, it'll be a girl. And then it sort of switched. The Targum Edison says the Malach came and took Yosef. Yosef was originally in Leah's stomach. Took Yosef, put her into Rachel's stomach, and took out Dinah from Rachel's stomach and put her into Leah's stomach. But originally Dinah was supposed to be born like a boy. So the Radal says that could be in certain aspects she had the nature of a boy, sort of like a tomboy type of idea. But the Medrash over here, as the Radal says, is saying the opposite. It wasn't a chisaron in Dinah that she was the type of person who would go out. No, she was Yesheves Ahalim. She would sit in the tent and she wouldn't go out. It's coming exactly to exclude what the opinion of Rashi and Medrash Rabbah, etc. So why is she called? Okay, that's one thing. So what? So she was the type of person who would be in her tent. Also Shechem ben Chamor. What did Shechem ben Chamor do? I mean, we're assuming for some reason that Shechem ben Chamor knew that Dinah exists. If she didn't go outside, then how does he know that she exists? You would probably have to say that it doesn't literally mean that she never went outside. She obviously went outside, as much as needed, but she would have tried to curtail that to not go outside more than necessary. And for whatever reason, somehow Shechem knew about her and decided that he wanted her. So what did he do in order to attract her? Hevi mischakois neorois chutzala misayfavos betupim. He brought young girls. He brought them to be outside of her tent, and they were playing musical instruments, and that piqued or aroused Dinah's curiosity. So Yotza Dinah lirais babanes hamesachakes. So Dinah went outside to go watch these girls that were playing, because that's the nature of a woman when she hears music. The Radal says it's a Gemara in Kotan, Daf Testament Beis, that the nature of a woman is that when she hears music, she's attracted to the music and wants to go out and see what's happening over there. The curiosity, that midah of curiosity, is what got her. Interestingly, the Gemara that the Radal brings, it says, Bas Shitin kebas shis lekal tavla riata. It's a Gemara in Moed Katan. It says a woman who's 60 years old is like the same as a woman who's 6 years old, in regard that they would be running after the voice of a music. They would be attracted to it to find out like what's happening and join in if they can. And then the Radal notes that in Masechus Seifrim it actually says that Dinah was 6 years old in this story. So that it's very appropriate that the Medrash says, that the Gemara says 60 is like 6 years old in this regard, and then we're talking about a girl who's actually 6 years old, at least according to Sefer, according to Masechus Seifrim at the end over there in Perek Chaf Aleph, Mamish towards the end of the Sefer in Masechus Seifrim, it says that Dinah was 6 years old when this story happened to her. Other sources say that she was 8 years old or 8.5 years old. There's different sources exactly how old Dinah was when this story happened. Fine. So that's how Shechem ben Chamor was able to get Dinah to go outside. What did he do to her? V'shalalah, he captured her as booty. V'shachav Eisa, and he lied with her. Fine. What happened? So also the Radal points out. It says in the pasuk, "Vayidaber alei hanara." He spoke upon the heart of the girl. So that sounds like he actually convinced her. But the Radal no. The Medrash is coming to tell us no. It doesn't mean that he actually convinced her. It means that he forced her. He tried to convince her, but he wasn't successful. Fine. V'harsa v'yolda es Osnas, and Dinah became pregnant, and from that she gave birth to Osnas. And as we're going to see later on in the parak, that Osnas was actually the person who married Yosef HaTzadik. And there's a whole cheshbon in the Mitzachas Seifrim how it was that to say that Dinah was 6 years old. There's a whole cheshbon that says that Yaakov worked for Lavan for 6 years, etc. Okay, as I already said, there's some opinions say she was 6, some 8, some 8.5. But the shaila is, as Rav Sadia going to ask the shaila, says that if she was only 6 or 8, so how did she become pregnant? A woman that young, even if someone has relations with her, she's not going to become pregnant. So how are we saying over here that when Dinah was raped, so she became pregnant, she gave birth to Osnas? So I guess in order to answer Rav Sadia Gain's question, you would have to say that the nature of people in earlier generations was different. The Gemara says that men used to be fathers when they were already 7, 8 years old. So you could say the same thing, I guess, that their nature was before Matan Torah or whatever exactly it was. The nature used to be different. Nishtana Teva, the nature has changed. That's one mahalach you could say. A different mahalach you could say is there's actually, this doesn't really answer the question so much. It's a different approach. Our Medrash is saying that Osnas was the daughter of Dinah, but there's another Medrash that says that Osnas was actually Egyptian. She wasn't from the daughter of Dinah, and she is a Gyaris. She converted. That's the Medrash Tadshe. It's brought in Midrashim. The Chasidei Ashkenaz bring this Medrash in a few places. The Revuda Chassid, the Rekef, etc. They seem to go with this Medrash that Osnas was not actually the daughter of Dinah. She was actually an Egyptian woman who converted, and Yosef married her. So if you go like that, so then you don't have a question anymore. Oh, how did Dinah get pregnant? No, we hold like a different Medrash. V'amru b'nei Yisrael l'harga. B'nei Yisrael, the sons of Israel, meaning Yaakov Avinu's sons, they wanted to kill her. Who was it that they wanted to kill? It's not clear exactly. I first thought it means that they wanted to kill Dinah, but I think that the pshat is that they wanted to kill Osnas. It seems like they wanted to kill Osnas. Sha'achshav yemu kol ha'aretz. Now everyone, all the people of the land are going to say, Sheish beis znus ba'ohel Yaakov, that there's a house of harlotry in the tents of Jacob, or Sheish bas zima ba'ohel Yaakov, that there's a daughter of licentiousness in the tents of Jacob. There's two gersayos over there. Right, so the sons of Yaakov wanted to get rid of her. We got to get rid of. It seems they want to get rid of Osnas, and they want to do something because otherwise it makes the family look bad. They also have lahavdil, like the Muslims do honor killings if their sister does something bad, so they go out and kill her. Also Yaakov. So what did Yaakov Avinu do? Heavy tzitz. He brought tzitz, like a plate. Because of Shem HaKodesh, and Yaakov Avinu wrote on this plate. He wrote the special name of Hashem, V'sola al Salvarach, and he hanged this plate on her neck, on Osnat's neck, V'shilcha v'holchala, and he sent her off, and she went away. And therefore he gave her this special this necklace that had this plate that had the Shem of Hashem, and he sent her off with it. What's the idea of giving her this plate to send her off with? So the Bayis Haggadol explains that Stam Pashab Shad, he didn't want her to die, he wanted her to be protected. So he wrote like a kmeya, like some sort of amulet with the Shem Hashem written on this plate in order to protect her. That's l'chara Pashab Shad, Bayis Haggadol says. But there's another element to it, that there's a halacha called an asufi, brought in the Mesachas Kedushin, last parak, also in Even HaEzer and Siman Daled, it's passed in halacha. If you find a child, we don't know who this child is. Just someone knocks on your door, you open the door, and now there's a little bassinet over there, and you don't know where this child came from. You have reason to believe that it's Jewish, let's say. You don't know where it came from, and you bring it into your house and you raise the child, etc. So the question is, what is the halachic status of that person? Are they considered, what's the yichus status of that person? The genealogical status. Is that person considered a mamzer? Not considered a mamzer? So there's a halacha called an asufi. An asufi is someone who literally means asuf, gathered. Someone who's gathered in from the marketplace. So such a person has the halachic status as a suffix mamzer, a person of dubious lineage, questionable lineage, and you're not allowed to marry an asufi. Now the halacha is that if the person who gave up this child, why is it? Because we assume that somebody did something wrong, they had incestual relation or whatever, and this child was born from that, and they gave up the child because they didn't want to end up raising an illegitimate child like that. But when you find this asufi, this lost, abandoned child, if you find in a way that the child was set up that it could survive, and that the parents actually wanted it to be okay, not to die, the parents felt for its well-being, so then we're going to assume that no, the child is not a suffix mamzer, rather the parents couldn't afford it and they want to come pick it up later or something like that, and the child's yichus is considered legitimate and it's not problematic. That's the halacha of asufi. So the Mefarshim, the Radal, the Bayis Haggadol both explain that when Yaakov Avinu put this necklace around Osnas, when they sent her away, he was trying to show that if someone finds her, she's not an asufi, she's not a suffix mamzeres, rather she's a legitimate child because I gave her a special amulet to protect her. And that's how we answer the question that, how is Yosef, we're going to see it in a minute or so, that Yosef HaTzadik ended up marrying Osnas, so the question is how can he marry her if she's a suffix mamzeres? So the answer is no, she's not a sufi. It's a different status because she had this special amulet that was done to protect her. Radal brings another medrash from the Rabbeinu, in the name of Rabbeinu Bechai. He brings a medrash that says that why is she called Osnas? Because she was hidden in the bushes, besnat. Like Osnas is like a lashon of snat. So also that same idea. What's the idea of hiding her in the bushes? Because you hide her in the bushes, she's protected from the elements, she's protected from the animals. So you see that her parents cared for her well-being, and she's not in a sufi. Fine. Says the Medrash, everything is foreseen in front of Hashem. He arranges everything to happen, and this story happened in a way that Hashem arranged it so that Yosef is going to be able to marry someone that he is fitting to marry. Michael, the angel, came down and he brought Osnas down to Egypt, to the house of Potiphar, because Osnas was fitting to Yosef to be a wife. And the wife of Potiphar was an akara. She was barren and she wasn't able to have children, so she took Osnas and she adopted Osnas and she raised Osnas as her own daughter. There's an interesting medrash. The medrash says that what's the reason that the wife of Potiphar, why was she so interested in Yosef HaTzadik, that she was pursuing her and pursuing him, trying to seduce him so much? Why was she so interested in him? So the medrash says that she saw through her astrology that she's destined to have children through Yosef. So therefore, she understood that that's her destiny, that she's supposed to do something with Yosef, have relations with Yosef. So Chaim Kanievsky brings this medrash, and he says, you have a raya from this medrash that the daughter that Osnas was not actually the daughter of Dinah, but was actually a daughter of Potiphar, or the wife of Potiphar, because she saw it says that she saw an astrology that she's supposed to have children with Yosef, and that's what happened, right? So Chaim Kanievsky wants to bring it out, not like our pick of the Eliezer that Osnas was the daughter of Dinah, but rather that Osnas was an Egyptian girl who converted or whatever, because it says in the Medrash that Potiphar's wife saw in astrology that she's destined to have children through Yosef. L'maisa, it's not. The Rav Chaim Kanievsky brings this raya, but l'maisa, it's not really such a strong raya, because you could say that astrology is not 100%, it's not foolproof, and we find in many places in Chazal, and I don't want to get into all the different places, but we find many places in Chazal where people saw things in astrology and it wasn't exactly 100% accurate, and they made mistakes in interpreting the results in the readings, and it's not foolproof. So just because that's what the wife of Potiphar saw, that doesn't mean that that's actually true. And Rav Tzadok Kohen Milublin, famous Rav Tzadok, he writes in one of his Sfarim, he actually answers this question a little bit better. He says that when the wife of Potiphar saw through astrology that she's destined to have children through Yosef, it didn't mean that she herself was actually have children through Yosef. It meant through Osnas. And even though Osnas, like the Medrash over here says, was the daughter of Dinah, she wasn't related to the wife of Potiphar, but because it says over here, Gidlo is a kivas, the wife of Potiphar raised Osnas like a daughter, and Chazal tell us that if you raise somebody, you adopt a child and you raise them, it's as if you gave birth to them. So therefore, the astrology made it that she thought that she's going to have children through Yosef, but really it wasn't through her descendants or through her herself. It was actually through the daughter of Dinah that she raised. Alright. When Yosef came down to Mitzrayim, he took her as a wife. Shinamar, as it says in the pasuk, Osnas bas Potiphar kahin oin leisha. He gave her Osnat. Paro gave to Yosef Osnas, the daughter of Potiphar, kahin oin, the priest of On, which is Heliopolis, which is the center of the sun worship in Egypt. Leisha as the wife. Mepharshim say, why Dafka did Paro marry off Yosef to the daughter of Potiphar? Because Paro wanted to show that Yosef really wasn't guilty of what people said he was guilty of, why he was originally thrown in jail. He really wasn't guilty. God will give you a proof that he wasn't guilty. Look, he's marrying the lady's daughter. Or this is what people thought was the lady's daughter. Fine. Going back to the story of Dinah and Shechem, says the man, Shimon and Levi, Kino Gedola al Znus. Shimon and Levi had great zealousness over this znus, over this not necessarily adultery, but over this promiscuous activity. Shinamar, it says in the pasuk, it said, "Are you going to make our sister like a prostitute? No, we can't let you do that." So instead, they punished the entire city of Shechem. What did they do? Each man took his sword, meaning Shimon and Levi. Both of them took their sword, and they killed out the city, all the people of the city of Shechem. Fine. Now, the question is, what did the people of Shechem do to deserve such a death? They didn't do anything wrong. It was Shechem ben Chamor who raped Dinah. It wasn't all the people of the city. So why are all the people of the city getting killed? Okay, so I found in the Rishonim 3 different explanations of exactly why Shimon and Levi decided to kill out the entire city. We'll go through them rather quickly because we're sort of pressed for time. Okay, so what are the 3 explanations? The first explanation is the Rambam. Now, a little bit of an introduction to this explanation is like this. We know that there's 7 Noachide mitzvahs, right? There's 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach. Do you know what the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach are? Yeah? Okay. So, not everybody necessarily knows what they are. So, when I was a little kid, my father taught me a trick, how to remember the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach. Could be you heard this one. It's a Gemara in Sanhedrin, Daf Nun Hey Nun Vav, something like that. It lists the 7 mitzvahs, but there's a trick how to remember all 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach, in case you ever forget them. You go down from Aleph to Zayin in the Aleph base. Aleph, Ever Menachai, Beis is Birkas Hashem, meaning not cursing Hashem. Gimel is Gezel, not stealing. Dalet is Dinim, that Bnei Noach are obligated to set up court system of punishments and rewards, etc. Hey is Hereg, Vav is Va'avodah Zara, not to commit idolatry, and Zayin is Dus, that they're not allowed to commit certain sexual forbidden relations. And those are the 7 mitzvahs Bnei Noach. So we said the fourth one, Dalet Dinim, it requires Bnei Noach to set up a court system so that they could punish criminals and seek out justice. So the Rambam explains that if a Goyisha society, a Ben Noach, a Noachite society, does not set up a court system and do not punish criminals, so then they're held responsible. They're violating this rule of the 7 mitzvahs Bnei Noach, and they're chayv misa. They're culpable themselves for capital punishment. And the Rambam explains that that's what happened over here in the story of Shechem. Because Shechem ben Chamor raped Dinah and he got away with it, and the society let him do it, and they didn't take him to justice, they didn't bring him to court, they didn't treat him like a criminal, so the entire city is complicit in the act, and therefore they're all liable for the death penalty, and that's why Shimon Levi was able to go out and kill the whole city. That's what the Rambam says. And the Shaila Meshiv, the Yosef Shol Natans in his Sefer Divrei Shol and Chumash, so he brings from Sefer Yashar, that Sefer Yashar says more or less the same idea, that because they didn't protest Shechem ben Chamor's actions, the whole city was culpable. That's one explanation. The second explanation is that of the Ramban. The Ramban explains that the reason why Shimon and Levi killed out the entire city, Ramban Chumash says the reason why, not because of necessarily of this, but for other affairs that they happen to have done. They also do Avodah Zarah, they also do Kilei Arayos themselves. So each person, there was a reason why each person was liable for the death penalty, so Shimon and Levi went and carried it out and killed them all. That's the Ramban's explanation. But the Ramban will tell you that not setting up a court system, that doesn't make you liable for the death penalty. That's basically the argument between the Rambam and the Ramban. The third explanation is Rabbeinu Chaim Paltiel, one of the Rishonim. He was the Talmud of the Marami Rutenberg. Rabbeinu Chaim Paltiel says that the reason why Shimon and Levi killed out the entire city is because they all took turns raping Dinah. It wasn't just Shechem ben Chamor, it was everyone. Maybe he was the leader, the gang leader, but everyone did it. I don't know if it means also the women and the children were also killed, it seems. But everyone was involved. Not just that they had the sin of silence, but they actively partook in the sin of raping her, and they joined in. So therefore, they also got punished. That they were killed out by Shimon and Levi as well. Fine, so those are the 3 explanations of why Shimon and Levi killed out the whole city. Yaakov, when Yaakov heard that Shimon and Levi killed out the whole city, Nisyari Harbe Ma'id, he was very scared. Sha'amar, he said, Achshav Yetzu Kol Amei Ha'oretz, now all the nations of the land are going to come out, V'yei Osva Alai V'yarguni, and they're going to go gather up against me, and they're going to kill me, because I killed out a whole city, and people are going to be upset, there's going to be international outcry. So Hischil Mikalo Rogzam Shalbanav. So he began to curse the anger of his 2 sons, Shimon and Levi. Shinamar says the pasuk, Shimon and Levi Achim, right? Orur Apam, their anger should be cursed. He cursed the anger of Shimon and Levi. Va'oid, furthermore, Shekilo es charbam b'lashon Yavanis. Yaakov Avinu cursed their sword in the Greek language. What does that mean? Shemar, it says in the pasuk, Klei Hamas mecharei sehem. A vessel of violence is in their arsenal. What does that mean? A vessel of violence is in their arsenal. She'evanim karin l'cherev mocher. Mecharei sehem is in their arsenal, and the Greeks call a sword mocher. The word for sword, I guess in Greek, is mocher. So Yaakov Avinu specifically cursed their sword in Greek. That's an interesting idea. Why Dafka did Yaakov Avinu curse their sword in Greek? What does that mean? He cursed them in Greek. Like the rest of it is in Lashon HaKodesh, and he used this one word in Greek. So Rabbi Eliyahu Me'izmer explains that he didn't want to curse them completely in Lashon HaKodesh because that would make it a very strong curse. But if you use it in Greek, which is a less powerful language, so then it's not as effective. I spoke about this actually in my book on Lashon HaKodesh by Bilam. The Bilam used to curse in Daf specifically in Lashon HaKodesh because that's the most effective. Because that language is the most real language. But here it's saying that he cursed them in Greek because Yaakov Avinu didn't want to actually curse his two sons with like a really strong curse. So if you curse them in Greek, or at least one word in Greek, it's a weaker curse. Yeah, we'll just finish a few more lines. Shomol kol malchei haaretz v'nisrael me'od. All the kings of the land heard about this, that Shimon and Levi killed out an entire city, v'nisrael me'od, and they were very scared. So Yaakov Avinu was scared that the people are going to fight him, but the people were scared of Yaakov Avinu. Amru, they said, Im shtei bnei Yaakov also adavar zeh, if two sons of Yaakov Avinu could do this thing, they could kill out an entire city, then also chulam, if all the sons of Yaakov Avinu would gather together, they could destroy the entire world. So the people actually were very scared. Not like Yaakov Avinu said that the people are going to be angry and they're going to fight us. Rather, the mitzvah was that the people were very scared. And the fear of Hashem fell on all the people of the land. The fear of Hashem was upon all the people of the land, and they actually didn't start fighting with Yaakov Avinu in response to this story. They left him alone. Well, there is a medrash called Sefer Yashar that the medrash discusses a whole bunch of wars that the children of Yaakov Avinu fought, Melchemes b'nei Yaakov, different wars that they fought in response to this story, that different nations tried to fight their revenge for the city of Shechem. And the Ramban and Chumash, interestingly, mentions such a thing of this medrash Melchemes b'nei Yaakov, and the Ramban says, I'm not sure if you could believe it or not. But here Chazal seem to be going with the idea that no, the Goyim were scared, they didn't try to start up with Yaakov Avinu. So, fine, so we'll stop over here, and the Israel Hashem will continue. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, number one. Why did Yaakov throw out Dinah?
No, he didn't throw out Dinah, he threw out Osnas.
He threw out Osnas.
Yeah.
Why did he throw out Osnas?
Because it makes the family look bad, because people are going to be able to point at her and say, oh, this girl was born from some sort of forbidden or some shady relationship.
So why didn't Dinah have an abortion then?
Why didn't Dinah have an abortion? I don't know. I don't know if they had thought of that. Maybe they only realized she was pregnant after 40 days, and then after 40 days it's problematic to have an abortion. Maybe, I don't know.
You see, I'm a liberal.
Yeah, you're a liberal.
I'm a liberal. I'm a liberal who's forced to vote Republican every time because I'm Jewish. You'd never know it from my voting record.
Yeah.
But I'm pro-abortion.
Yeah.
Okay? So the thing is, here he is, like the Republicans in America, they're very anti-American.
No, I think I have a better answer. It says in the medrash that she got pregnant and she gave birth to Osnas, and then it says, and then afterwards the sons of Jacob said, we want to get rid of her. They only said it after she was already born. That's what it seems like.
Well, that's the Republicans in America. They're very anti-abortion. Oh no, have the baby.
Yeah.
But once the baby's born, they are against any child care, any aid to education, any aid to dependent children thing, any food stamps and stuff like that. So I've always said that the question about abortion is not when life begins, but when life ends. And according to these people, life ends at birth. Okay.
I remember the government, the conservatives don't feel that that's the what's it called, responsibility of the government.
Then let the woman have an abortion. Anyway, that's the first. Second thing is, in the Torah, if a man rapes a woman, he has to marry her, or if she's willing to.
If she's willing to, and if the father is willing to,
Yeah, okay. And the punishment for rape is not death.
Right.
So how come the punishment for rape with Shem was death?
Because first of all, Bnei Noach are held to a different standard than Bnei Yisrael are held to. So, for Bnei Noach, any type. First of all, there's a halacha that if a non-Jew has relations with a Jew, they're automatically chayiv misa. There's such a Rambam. It's censored in some editions, but there is such a Rambam that says that. The second point is that.
So wait a second, every interman nowadays is chayiv misa theoretically?
Possibly, at least according to the Rambam. The second idea is that you could. There's another difference between.
Oh yeah, we're getting back to Rambam. Does it work both ways?
One second. There's another difference between the halachas of that Jews are held to the standard that Jews are held to, and to the standard that Bnei Noach are held to. In regard to Jews, the prohibition of stealing, is limited to if you steal more than a pruta, a certain value. And for a guy, if you steal even less than a pruta, that's considered stealing. So one of the Mepharshim, Kubi the Ramana, I think himself says this, that when you rape a woman, so you are in a way you're stealing from her father, because if he wanted to marry her off, so if she was a virgin, so he can marry her off and get a better deal. But now, not necessarily from the father. I'm sorry, you're stealing from her future husband, right? Because if you marry her, wait, no, one second.
Say from the father because he gets a better deal. It's worth more.
Father, right? Because she's worth more. Right? Yeah, that's what I meant to say. Right.
That's why he's got to pay a fine.
That's right. That's fine. Right?
So that's why he's got to pay a fine.
But the fine, the knas, is in our halachas, in Parshas Mishpatim, in the Jewish halachas. In Goyish halachas, that's considered stealing, and the punishment for stealing is death.
But by the way, the third thing,
yeah,
everybody took part in the rape.
Yeah.
I don't think so, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I don't think Shem would have wanted to marry her. I think Shem would not have allowed his countrymen to rape her after him.
I don't know. Some people are very depraved, and you don't know exactly what makes them tick.
Then why does he want to marry her?
I don't know. Well, I'm saying, and also maybe the people of the city did it, even not necessarily with Shechem's consent. Once she's already here, then we might as well.
Well, there's another thing then, and getting back to the first thing from the Rambam, about setting up a court system. He's the king. How are the people going to put the king to justice?
I mean, I don't think that Shechem ben Chamor wasn't the king. His father was sort of like the mayor of the city. But again, a king is not exempt from justice. In Jewish law, if a king does an avera, he can be taken down from being king, depending on exactly what the avera was, or demoted or something. There has to be justice. The buck has to stop somewhere. There's no different standards for different people, and especially we're talking about the laws of Bnei, which are universal laws, which apply to all of humanity.
Now getting back to if a Jewish man not a Jewish woman, there's work both ways. Jewish man not a Jewish woman, and then a Jewish woman not a Jewish man. Or does it only work one way?
I don't remember offhand. Look in the Rambam. I don't even. Where is it? Halachos of IVF maybe. I don't remember where it is. It's in either history. I'll try to find it for a different time.
So, by the way, when they threw her out, how's a 3-year-old supposed to survive?
Who said she was 3?
How old was she when they threw her out?
We never said how old she was when they threw her out. We don't know how old Osnas was when they threw her out.
Why did the sons want to get rid of her that much?
It doesn't, because it makes the family look bad, and people are going to be able to point and say, this girl was born from some sort of shady relationship.
But the mother was raped. I mean, you can't blame anybody for that.
That's true. I don't know exactly how to understand.
Here's another question. Isn't there a medrash that Shimon eventually married her?
There is such a medrash. Married either Osnas or married Dinah. There's different versions of that medrash.
So how could he marry? He could marry Osnas because he can marry his niece.
Right.
But how could he marry his full sister?
So it's a good question. The truth is that there's a medrash that says that all the Shvatim married their twin sisters, or married twin sisters.
Well, I figured that let's say Reuven married let's say because there were 6 and 6, so he could have married a different mother.
Right. So the I think it's the Pirsha Torah Lotera says basically what you answered, that they married from different mothers, except that Shimon and Dinah had the same mother technically, right? But according to same father. Shimon and Dinah. They're brother and sisters from the same mother, same father. But based on what I was saying before, the idea that really Dinah was originally in the mother of Rachel and it switched. So then, in certain ways, Dinah would be considered, only Shimon's paternal sister, not maternal sister, and by Bnei Noach, a paternal sister is allowed. Only maternal sister is forbidden.
Because all the
And
other...
actually, this Pirusha, I think it's a Pirusha Torah letter, the place can bring us down in regard to figuring out the halachic status of surrogate motherhood.
Really?
Because let's say, when Dinah was conceived, she was in Rachel's stomach, but when she was born in Leah's stomach. It's like, what do you do with what is that? Could you say any practical ramifications of that in halacha, in contemporary halacha?
So
Well, first, I will also say that maybe you can't because this is an agadata, it's a medrash, it's not necessarily a halachic ruling, but I gotta go. It's getting very late for me. I didn't get home yet today.